Game begin.
Yeah, we design games that exercise the muscle of the imagination. Becoming aware of alternative pathways allows you to consider taking them. If you don't consider them, you may never take that pathway in the first place.
My name is Kaisu Isomäki and I work as an RDA specialist at Lab University of Applied Sciences. And I'm here with Martin Richards and we are working together at the Bounce Forward Resilience for Working Life project.
And I'm Martin Richards, a researcher at the Finland Futures Research Centre, where I specialise in futures literacy and transformational learning. Humans are natural game-playing animals. We can call them, we're like game-playing man or Homo ludens. And we have this natural ability to be playful and to play games that which is why we see it in many of the activities that we do already. But specifically, so engaging in game playing is such an immersive and powerful experience that it's something that we can tap into in order to simulate, in order to pre-experience futures, in order to develop our futures thinking itself. Yeah, game playing can be a really powerful experience, not just cognitively, but also emotionally. It's something that when we are immersed in playing a game, we lose ourselves. We are able to imagine ourselves in a time and a place that is not the present. And so it's a powerful tool for getting people to adopt different roles or to experience things that they haven't even yet experienced. So yeah, game playing is a really powerful tool of immersion, whether that's through role playing or simulated strategy situations or even design.
You don't need to have the big budget or coding skills, just the spark to create something with which you can engage your customers or other stakeholders and to create a tool for yourself with which you can basically know what your customers are excited about or inspired by. That's the only thing you basically need when you are trying to go to the pathway of making gamification as a part of your processes.
The connection between futures thinking and games has a really long history. Ranging from the use of carved bone dice in Greece and India to read the runes for the purposes of divination to explore futures, alternative pathways, to strategy games that have been used to simulate making strategic decisions. Of course, things like chess, the Game of Kings, the Viking game, these are all pretty well known. So over time, many of these evolved into the games that we know and familiar with today, and they have often been put into new forms by companies or research institutes, Rand Corporation in the 1960s started to develop wargaming as an actual mechanism for exploring alternative futures. Over time, many of these evolved into the games that we know and familiar with today, and they have often been put into new forms by companies or research institutes, Rand Corporation in the 1960s started to develop wargaming as an actual mechanism for exploring alternative futures. When you're just starting out on a project, it's good to be aware of the assumptions that you're making and your biases in relation to that project. So you can use futures thinking to begin to unpack what those assumptions might be and to identify and overcome some of those biases, particularly biases in terms of, short-term thinking or not really thinking about the implications of our possible courses of action.
We have been hosting these gamified futures thinking sessions for our participants of the project. The object of these sessions have been to develop the creativity and futures thinking of the participants, to help them realize that even though you wouldn't think that you are creative, all of us have some creativity in us. So at the sessions we hosted in our project, we actually played 3 different kinds of games. One of them had more of an idea creation perspective, one of them was more educational, and one of them was like immersion-based game.
Yeah, so it was just like sitting around a table in real life, playing with cards and game board pieces, except in a digital space.
Yeah.
Yeah, right. The idea creation game, or like the thing from the future, the artifact from the future, that can be used in like a business-to-business context, or in like an internal, within your business context, to start thinking outside of the box, because you can use, when you're using the future as a starting point for like creativity, it really gives you license to let your imagination run wild, because you can start to accept that, well, what if certain conditions were no longer true? Or what if this, you start to think in terms of what if and yes and these can lead you down some really interesting pathways in terms of coming up with some really different or novel ideas.
We actually had this goal of educating our participants to learn more about emerging issues and megatrends.
Yes.
But all these topics, they could be anything basically. So if you want to teach about like current traveling trends, that could be one of the topics, or basically anything your target group could be interested in.
Then there's a third game that we haven't talked about yet, and that was
Immersive game.
the immersive game. Thank you. Right, the role-playing game. Right, Wizard of Oz. Yeah, about simulating a future like service delivery situation between an AI and who is like trying to operate according to the rules that it's learnt, and a human who is pushing the boundaries.
So for the entrepreneurs at the moment, this game could be used, for example, to find out how their customers would immerse with their products or use their products, to actually find out what are the difficulties, for example, with the products they actually now have, or what kind of thoughts their products raises from the customer experience point of view. And these kind of games, like if you are building a product, you surely would usability test your products, but gamification can be one way of doing that. So you don't always have to have like serious interviews with lots of questions and following how their eyes are going. You can make the sessions fun and engaging, and actually get ideas from the customers themselves to make it better, and not only come up with the questions on your own, but help your own customers to develop the product further.
In other words, you're like playtesting the future.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. There's like all different layers of value that can be generated from these games, whether it's like the value of engaging in this game, in this place with these particular people, or whether it's a matter of like gaining insights about the topic, or maybe even learning something new in terms of a new relationship or a new how-to. So there's lots of different possible layers of value that can be generated from these, like applying playfulness and game playing to your own internal processes, not just in terms of like designing games for your customers, but also designing games for yourself.
Yeah, or for your like working community,
Yeah.
to like get to know your community better, to get to know, to find value in your like on your own, from your own
Right.
peers.
So like applying creativity and imagination through playfulness in your own processes.
Yeah,
Developing the game itself is a learning process, a learning cycle. And the more iterations of the game that you can prototype, implement, get feedback from, and then, you know, design again, and then put into practice and repeat the circle again and again, the more you learn, and therefore the more developed the game will be when you are ready to put it into action.
yeah. So when you know the questions you want to ask from your customers, for example, or you have the topics you would like to cover, you don't need to know what kind of responses you would want from them. You just have to make sure that your customers or any players aren't confused while they are playing. To make the situation comfortable is the best thing to do, because then while the people are having fun and they're relaxed, they are able to give you the answers you are probably looking for.
Yeah, so what you're talking about is a kind of like lightweight digital prototyping that where you're making use of the like board game or tabletop or card game elements. And for us, that involved making these in Miro and getting people to sit around a digital or virtual table. And it was run by a facilitator, so like by a kind of games master who'd keep everything on track. And the reason why that's quite a good way to implement these games is because you can, A, make them really fast, B, you can change them really fast, and they don't take a lot of effort or resources to be able to implement, test, change, get feedback, and so forth.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So don't get stuck with the thought that you have to have finalized product. You can like have this session with your peers or one customer if you want to, one trusted customer who doesn't care that much about like your maybe buddies or something. So to find out what are the faults and the successes in your game and then develop it further.
Right.
Don't get stuck that you have to have final product next week, but you have to have like the version 0.0001 and then, yeah.
Right, so you're saying that the barrier to entry should be like really low.
Yeah.
Right, and it doesn't need to be polished. It doesn't need to be like a final version. It's just whatever, the barest minimum functioning product, just throw it in there, try it out.
Yeah.
If it doesn't work, if it falls flat on its face, you're still learning something.
Yeah.
And you can feed that back into the next iteration.
Yeah, you're learning what you shouldn't do next time, or yeah, at least. And
Yeah.
even though the first versions would be really ugly, always remember that form follows function. So if your game, even though if it was the best game look-wise, it wouldn't be a good game at all if the function doesn't cover what it should cover.
We encourage entrepreneurs to bring a playful exploration of futures through gamification into their working practices. It combines the rigor of systems thinking with the exercise of the creative muscle of the imagination for the purposes of experiential futuring.
Start small, iterate often, make corrections accordingly, and have fun. The last part is the most important one. And even though you wouldn't at first realize what the point of all these rounds of development is, on each round of those you will certainly learn something valuable.
Game over.